And I'm a big believer in paying it forward. And to make sure that everybody understands we're here to help. And that's the reason why I felt like doing something like this today was the best next step. So what we're really going to try to do today is assimilate all of the knowledge that we've learned dealing with the hundreds of growers that we service around the world, and try to provide some guidance on what works and what doesn't work, both in growing a cannabis business, but also scaling a business generally in a hyper-growth market. And today I'd like to welcome Lori Schultz, our Senior Vice President of Marketing. She's going to interface here with me, and we're going to talk a little about some of the lessons that we've learned over the last few years. Thanks, Lori.
Thanks, Dave. I'm excited about being here today, and this is going to be a great conversation. We've learned a lot in the last couple of years, haven't we?
Yeah, we have. We've seen quite a bit.
We have. It's been amazing to watch both companies that have these massive, great plans as far as growth, great strategies and everything else, and then they're not around the next year. And does that make the cannabis industry unique?
The pace at which it's growing and the amount of capital that's flowing into the business creates a scenario where you're going to get a lot of very quick successes, but also a lot of quick failures.
So is this kind of your usual business book that you can just pull off the shelf and how to grow a business?
When you're in hyper growth, literally things could change every month. They could change every week. You have to be extremely prepared to pivot. And no, I don't believe that there's a ready-made guide, but I do believe there's some really basic principles of growing a business. Strategy, people, right? Really, really important. Being able to pivot when things go wrong. And in this industry in particular, I think it's going to be critically important that you get yourself a very good grower. Either you're the grower and you're leading everything in the business and you have a business partner who can look out for everything else, or you're a really strong business partner and you need an exceptional grower, because at the end of the day, we're growing plants. And growing plants requires a level of talent and expertise that's quite rare in the industry from what we've seen.
Yeah. So you talk about people and grower in particular, and what we've seen as far as a good matchup of growers and business people, let's say. Mm-hmm. So, and a lot of times we see one or the other with these great ideas or where they've spawned from. So how do you describe that when you're looking at the people? Is it just get the greatest grower on the globe?
The challenge is, when can you afford to bring the best people in, right? So trying to find that talent. And then as the business is growing, the other challenge is, in this type of hyper-growth environment, the business often outgrows people, right? You've got great people that help you from the day you decide to put a shovel in the ground and dig the hole and put the facility up, and you grow up to a certain size, and then the business starts to rapidly outgrow the people. So what I found is one of the biggest challenges overall in scaling a business quickly in this industry or any other industry is, how do you get the best people? When can you afford them, right? And how do you look ahead to see where the business is growing so you can make decisions on, am I going to get people that the business grows into, or am I going to start with people that grow the business, then knowing that you might have to make changes later on because the business might get too big for them. From a people standpoint, getting the best people, whether it's the best grower, the best whatever in your business. And, by the best, we're not talking about number one in the world, it's the best for you, right? And taking that time to really understand what fits in your culture, what fits with your personality, what fits with your expectations, making those decisions as opposed to just filling slots with warm bodies.
How difficult does it make finding people that you can actually rely on and trust in this industry?
I think it's extremely difficult. You have a couple of forces working against each other that is making the people part of it really difficult. The industry is growing exponentially fast, faster than the supply of talented people. And when I say talented people, I'm really talking about the grower level, the people who really understand how to get the most out of a plant. You're always going to be able to find operational executives and CEOs and finance people and marketing people. That, I think, is a skill that can apply across a lot of different industries. But at the end of the day, operationally in cannabis, I'm really concerned that the growth rate of the industry and the size that it's going to become in the time that everybody's talking about is not supported by the labor that is available to do it. And a lot of people are going to take tens or hundreds of millions of dollars of investment and put it ultimately in the hands of people who've never operated at large scale. And that's always been the concern that we've seen. Fantastic growers at 10, 15, 20, 100 plants. Then you walk into a 1 million square foot greenhouse, even a 10,000 plant vertical facility, and it's very, very different. So that knowledge gap is going to have to be closed. And we've been looking into a lot of different options of that at Fluence, for example, by sponsoring training at universities or participating in programs. But at the end of the day, it's a brand new industry. You're pulling people out of an illicit industry into a legal industry and growing it at an extremely fast pace. So I think labor is one of the biggest concerns overall.
I know at Fluence, when we talk about this a lot, we're not just about selling lights, because I think that's what our customers are literally coming to us begging for, a lot more than just expertise in lights.
Yeah, and the way that Fluence approached this market 5-6 years ago when we really started to get into it was looking at the customer base and saying, there are problems here that need to be solved. What we want to try to do is bring answers, not a company full of experts that have answers to everything, but a connecting network of organizations in the ecosystem that can all help each other get better. And that approach is what we still live by today, right? We put on events like PhotoX. We bring growers and partners and ecosystem partners together. We're trying to introduce people that can help each other because there's just so much to learn here and it's going so fast. So I think that kind of quest for knowledge and the industry's willingness to supply that knowledge and cross-train and explain is something that's very, very powerful. I haven't seen that in nearly any of the industries that I've ever been in. You genuinely have growers that want to help other growers be successful because they know it's the rising tide lifts all ships. And the other thing that we saw that was really fascinating at the beginning is all of the work that we were doing on the vegetable side of lighting. These tomato growers, cucumber growers, peppers, basil, they provided some of the best insight and consulting to our brand new cannabis growers. And all we did was connect the dots. And I'm really proud to say that I think the company has a solid reputation of bringing answers to the market or bringing direction on where to get those answers. I think that is something that's an amazing part of this industry. People really want to get together and share best practices. They want to help each other avoid pitfalls. System integrator partners, racking partners, airflow partners, lighting, and growers are all trying to figure out the best way to do things. And for me, this is one of the only industries I've ever been in where that free flow of information is so prominent, and people are really looking. Once they figured out how to do something, what they want to do is go tell the next guy so that person can do it.
What do you see? What's the difference globally?
At the growers that I met in New Zealand, Australia, Thailand, all over Europe, Germany, Portugal, Spain, Denmark, United States, Canada, they're all the same. They're all in this for the same reason. They all come with the same passion, and they really want to see success.
What are the other things around cannabis as far as it's not regulated necessarily? It's not regulated the same, even if it is, across states, across countries, across the globe, and the whole aspect of licensing?
Yeah, that's a great question. And going back to the last episode with Michael Ward at Harbor Farms and some of the literal horror stories about getting a license, and then it's not just the license to cultivate and the license to process and the license for a dispensary. It even goes down to the local township or village that you've started in, convincing the electrician to issue a permit. I mean, there's just so many things that can go wrong, and make sure that you're doing a lot of what-if planning around that, because that's where we see a lot of things go horribly wrong.
What have we seen our customers and prospective customers say that they've done to really help them through that process? What have we heard? Have they surrounded themselves with, they gotten a special lobbyist? Have they surrounded themselves with people who know how to work the politics or the governmental rules?
Yeah, but it's a double-edged sword. You have, states now clearly in the United States control what happens in their state. The federal government is debating whether they're going to get involved or not get involved, safe banking, the MORE Act, federal legalization at some point. But it's still very choppy, right? It's different everywhere. And what we've seen, the people have been most successful try to get answers to all of the questions before they start the process. But I have yet to speak to anybody that said, yeah, I went to this person and my licensing went fine. There was no problems. Like nearly everybody we talk to tells us about, either licensing or permitting horror stories that just stop them dead in their tracks. So, if you can afford it, get consultants, put a plan in place. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. 3 months later, something changed. You have to be able to pivot. And what we've seen, some of the most successful growers and business operators are people that have a plan, but can change that plan on a dime, depending on which way the tides are blowing or flowing at any point in time. So I talked about the strategic plan, how important it is. You really have to start with what do I want to do and how am I going to do it? But then the next thing right behind that is be prepared to throw that away and redo it as things are happening as you're starting. So it's tough.
The market is huge. The market is huge. North America still a lot of growth to be had, a lot of growth globally to be had. And so there's space for a lot more players for sure.
Yes.
And just that ability to take advantage of that is going to be, it's fun to be around, right? It's energetic. I think every day we walk in and it's a whole new story. But when we get to deal with people like that and you're actually networking and building those trust relationships across the entire region, it's really energizing to me.
Yeah, it is. And I think a really good indicator of that is, for the people in the industry who are familiar with it, MJ Biz. It was in Las Vegas. We had to take a year off because of COVID. Just simply being in the environment and talking to the people in the space, whether we transact with them or not, what we want to do is be connected, understand what people need, and try to help. And one of the things, as I mentioned earlier, that I've seen in the industry that's just amazing is the willingness of everybody to help each other. Right? At the end of the day, obviously, we want to win as much as we can win. But really what we're trying to do is let growers know whether you buy products from us or not, we can help. If there's other players out there, competitors of ours, competitors of other people in the space that are all great companies, and it's growing so fast that the pie is so big, you need a lot of people to be able to supply that hyper growth. But at the end of the day, the willingness of most people to share information, whether it's sharing and helping your competitor understand things or helping a customer or helping a partner, this is a great space to be in. And I'll say it again, the people are absolutely wonderful. All of the people that we meet, the growers, the partners, the bankers, everybody, it's just a really great space to be in. Everybody's super happy. Right. So that's great.
That is very true.
Yeah.
Super happy or super sad sometimes, but
one or the other, right? Right.
We all help each other through that for sure. What do you think is the advice to share that you wish someone would have told you, even as far as starting to scale Fluence, that would have been really helpful to know?
What I found, it's the people that you surround yourself with and making sure that you check your ego at the door. Right? You need to be strong in leadership in providing people a vision of where you want to go and a strategy to get there. It's learning by making mistakes. I don't know there's any other way to be successful than to fall down a lot of times. And the great companies, the great leaders, the great entrepreneurs, the great business people, they have a very short-term memory. I don't even remember what happened yesterday. I'm going forward today. I can make mistakes. I can fail fast. I'm going to pick myself up and we're going to try again. But what I've always found is that success comes fastest when I have people around me that are far better than me. And it comes the slowest when I'm pulling people into roles and leaving them there that they shouldn't be in. Right? So that's my personal experience. I can say very personally at Fluence, for example, the team of people that got the company from 3 guys in a garage to a $100 million business, these are exceptional people. Like there was no possible way it could have happened without them. But as you go to the next tranche of growth, you talk about going from 100 to 200 and 200 to 300, the business outgrows people quickly, and managing that and seeing that before it happens is really hard, especially when you're running around, at least at Fluence, trying to grow, buy facilities, expand overseas, manufacturing footprints all over the place, and scaling up. You got to make sure that you've made the decision between how many people am I going to bring in that I know we're going to outgrow, and how many people am I going to bring in that we're going to have to grow into.
And it sounds like not only thinking about it from business perspective and really what you're trying to do with that strategic plan that you referred to, But then as a leader or as trying to be the person steering this ship, it sounds like that in itself can be a fairly lonely journey at that point. What do you do to get that advice that you talked about, get the advice and sharing that you wish someone had told you? How do you deal with that?
Well, that's really tough, right? So I can speak from my personal experience in being the leader of Fluence while it was growing this fast, my personal experience in growing other businesses this quickly. I've always found that having a mentor, a coach, an unbiased person that you can bounce ideas off of, ideally somebody who has no idea of the specifics of your business, because at the rate of growth and the rate of change that's happening, we talk about it. Sometimes there's days where I feel like I made 1,000 decisions and I can't fact check every one of those decisions before I make them, but I know the big ones that are going to have major impact regardless of what I decide. What I like to do is bounce those ideas off of people for a sanity check. And because it is really lonely. You know, when you're growing a business this quickly and you're the CEO or you're at the top of the organization, whatever your role is, you know, people are looking to you on nearly every day, the words you say, the actions that you do, and making sure that you're not only leading in the right way, but your decisions are based on strategy and common sense. And I'm not even remotely implying that people don't have common sense, but when you're going that fast, sometimes things that seem like a really good idea are a really bad idea. Right? And I know that for myself. I know that there were things that I saw one day that I thought the way to address it is A, but it was really B. And when I didn't ask for help and I made the mistake, I was kicking myself that, oh boy, if I just would have asked. And then when I did ask for advice and was talked out of ideas, 99 times out of 100, it was the right move. So I say, find somebody you can trust, find somebody you can lean on, ideally somebody that doesn't have a vested interest in what you're doing or really an understanding of the market, just from a business standpoint, to make sure that you don't do anything silly, if at all possible.
That's hard. That's a hard call.
It's really, really difficult.
We've had a lot of conversations with so many different growers globally as well. What are some examples that you've seen people do that really well?
I think at Fluence, and we're just very, very fortunate because of the sheer volume of growers that we now have serviced and that we've talked to over the years. A lot of people come to us for advice, and we're certainly not the central repository for all the information, nor do we have all the right answers. But that engagement and that dialogue is extremely helpful for us, because right away it lets us understand what is the thing that's most worrying this grower. And most times it's not lighting. It's really not. So we want to be there to have that information to help them understand, you know, we've seen this, that's worked over here, this didn't work over there, and help them try to piece this together and point them in the right direction, because there's always something to be learned. And I think if you can find that balance, you're going to be a step ahead of anybody else.
It's been a great conversation today, and I think we have found some great topics with some experts for next time.
Yeah, and I just want to leave everybody with, you know, what we're trying to do is provide as much insight and knowledge as possible. We can't answer all the questions. We're not experts at everything, but really I'm hoping that everybody understands that, you know, Fluence is here to help close the gap on knowledge and help people scale their businesses. So until next time, thank you everybody for tuning in, and have a great day.